Hi, I'm Brian,
And I'm Kathryn.
and we are Thriving with the Bovinos.
On today's episode, we are going to address all things homeschooling.
We're going to share a little bit about our journey, answer the top 5 questions that you want to know. So let's dive into it. Kathryn, so this is our first year homeschooling, technically not going to public school, although you have some different opinions of that.
We've dabbled in it.
What have we done
homeschooling.
before?
So
Help me remember.
during COVID time,
Okay.
there was a hybrid kind of program of homeschooling. I did a lot of preparation for kind of a morning homeschool time with them, going outside, doing circle time. We had a schedule and everything, but our daughter was also in a charter school at that time. So she had a 30-minute video she had to attend.
Preschool during COVID virtual consisted of 30 minutes of online school, and that was it.
And then back into school. And then when we moved here, we dabbled in a little homeschool as we started to try to figure out where we wanted to be. And I didn't want to switch the kids around to different schools. So we said, let's do this.
And last year they went to the public school, and this year fully committed.
Fully committed.
Fully committed. Let's take a dive. You've thought about it, always wanted to do it, always wondered what it would be like. And I said, hell no. They'll be home every day, all day. But
I think that's a common misconception to most people, is that you're just at home all day. And like,
home all day with the kids. How am I going to get anything done? What's that like? So the first question I want to ask, how do I start homeschooling and what are the legal requirements? So you kind of took care of the legal stuff. You contacted the county and you said, hey, I want to homeschool.
Well, yes, definitely look into your state and your county and your city and everything and what the legal requirements are, because they were different in California for us than they are here, and they're different in Florida and other states. So here we just needed to contact our superintendent of our county and let them know, give them a notice of intent. And the notice of intent has some requirements, but it's the intent to educate from home or homeschool or whatever you want to call it. And you just let them know, you give them all the information they need, and you're on your way.
You're free. So what, though, is the requirement of educating and testing, or is there anything where at the end of the year they have to qualify to move on to the next grade, or what does that look like?
Yes. So for Virginia, for our state, there are requirements where you can make a choice of whether you take a standardized test at the end of the year to show that they're making progress or that they're in the appropriate range, or you can meet with a certified teacher, someone that can assess your children. Usually you might present a portfolio, show them what you've done over the school year and show progress, and then they can write a letter stating that they have assessed your student and that they have made progress and they're moving along. And then I think there's another format that I'm not remembering right now, but there are other exemptions as well. If you do a religious exemption, you don't have to share progress. So there's lots of different variations, and you definitely want to check out what your state and your county and all of that requires.
So what were we seeing or noticing, or what kind of value did we think homeschooling would provide that maybe the public school didn't provide? Which, they went to public school, we volunteered at the school, we got to know the teachers and helped out as much as possible and did after school programs, so we were pretty involved there, and it wasn't bad. There was things that were happening that maybe we would have done differently, but it wasn't definitely a bad situation. I think part of it is we noticed the kids coming home, and obviously they pick up things from other kids that weren't the best, which is going to happen anywhere, but it was just a feeling of, I don't want to go. It was very stressful. They would come home and often lash out when they got off the bus, whether that was they're tired, they're hungry, or just being, maybe we felt, stuck in this environment that was very stressful for them and kind of lashed out. We'd often get a lot of screaming and yelling and hitting, and at the end of the day, and then finally work through what was going on. And
yeah, and I think that's a lot of families see that in the field that we work in, but also just families seeing that breakdown when their kids get home from school from keeping it together all day, especially if you have a highly sensitive child or a child that is masking or keeping it together, right, and keeping it all in and doesn't feel like they can speak up or doesn't feel like they can ask for what they need, which was shared to us. And I think even our kids' friends have shared a lot of the things with school. They don't feel like they can go to the bathroom when they want. They don't feel like they can get a snack if they're hungry because they're not allowed, right? And so having those restrictions can cause that, right? That breakdown at the end of the day.
yeah, and just sitting at a desk for long periods of time and not having a lot of movement, not having a lot of individual attention.
Yeah, and I think they they want to do their best and
Yeah.
they say that they will meet those needs. And even the gifted program that you can get into to challenge children, they'll say, oh, we'll give them the extra support. But the feedback we were getting is these supports are not in place. And also you mentioned the movement and sitting at the desk. That was also something that we've heard a lot about. The kindergartners get 2 recesses a day, and they get more time on the floor, more time up and down and moving around. And once you get out of kindergarten, then 1 recess, and it's only like 15 minutes and it's combined with your lunch. And so if you want to eat, you miss
Yeah.
recess. And if you want to play, you don't eat. And then that's setting their whole nervous system up for,
And sitting in that school with the lights,
oh,
the
yes.
kids' classrooms didn't have windows,
Mm-hmm.
and it was very sterile. The teachers are doing their best, and it's just a really challenging
Yeah.
situation with often 30 kids and one teacher. I don't
Yeah.
care who you are, it's a very challenging task.
Yeah, and even with the minimal number, I think they had 23 or something. It's still hard to meet everyone's needs. But that was one thing that bothered me every time we would go in is the rooms without windows. It was very hard for me with the overhead lights and no windows. And to think about being in that room all day was just like, ugh. And I know it's fine. Kids will get by. Kids are resilient, and it is fine. But for me, it was like, well,
I just thought, "It's fine, it's
it's
fine,
fine.
it's
It's
fine."
fine. It's fine. They'll be fine. They will.
Yeah.
I mean, but our
Do we wanna just be fine, or do
right.
we wanna thrive?
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for.
And so that's moving here has been our whole mission, I feel, in creating Thrive and thriving with the Bovinos. And if we're able to create our lives in a way and build it in a way that helps us to thrive and is meaningful to us and gives us control over our schedule and what we want to learn about, what we want to work on, why couldn't we do that for our kids? Why not? Why can't they have an awesome experience with their school life or their education and it be meaningful and values driven and
And excited about learning,
yes,
right?
yes.
That's the most important. We have to be excited about learning and growing, and we are as adults, and we value that a lot. And
Mhm.
a lot of that you see is just taken away when it's just pushing them through class by class and grade by grade, and they're just a number and just going through the motions, and there's not a lot of excitement or joy in the process of learning.
And that is what kept that feeling gnawing at me inside was when they were not enjoying school. And I mean, I know they had fun with their friends and they, recess was great and all, but they weren't fully, and they'd have moments where they'd share an activity or something that was fun and exciting. But to hear that dampening of the joy of learning and that they kept saying they weren't learning anything and whether that was their own rote response. But it was like, why can't we just try this for 1 year, just 1 year? And I call it a hybrid homeschool model, just so it's not like we're just stuck in the home. And I think most people do a hybrid model, but yeah, that's what led us really ultimately to taking the chance.
And it's fascinating to hear so many people be like, "What's it like?" I was considering that out and finding the community that is so involved in
Mhm.
our area of really exploring that, and it seems to be growing in popularity, and there's a lot more options and alternatives available to supplement the learning and social and growth. I was just thinking about us, though, how lucky we are to have work and schedules that we can be very flexible and modify that and work based on others' needs and what's going on, and rearrange our schedules around that. Like,
Yes.
I think about parents or single parent homes that have a 9 to 5 and there's no other option, and this is kind of what they're stuck
Mhm.
with.
Yeah, I think it's a privilege that we have the opportunity to do this. We have also worked very hard to get to this point in our lives. I feel like to be able to modify things to fit what we want. But it definitely is a privilege and a an opportunity that I don't take lightly for other families that might be more challenging. And I know that the feedback and the advice when you get into any of the homeschool groups and you get onto any of the online forums is that anybody can do it. It's just finding a way. I know I can't imagine though being a single parent working maybe 2 jobs even and then trying to balance it because it's hard. Parenting is hard, number 1, then life is hard and then trying to then have the kids home and not have that place for them to go would be really challenging. Yeah. Good to acknowledge that.
Yes, yes. And so we made the commitment, Kathryn came up with a proposed schedule, which really helped me visualize what it's going to look like. How am I going to find time to work? And that helped me feel more safe in that. Okay,
There
it's
was several proposals, several versions of the
adjustments.
schedule.
I also want to say that we have made it a priority. Our time is very valuable in flexibility in being able to do that. And so money hasn't driven us, but our time and spending time with our kids and having that flexibility has been important. And we've carved out roles where we can do that. So I think that's been helpful as well to make that a priority over how can we make the most money or what's the job titles or what's the most.
And I think your involvement is incredibly helpful and important as well. And I don't think a lot of moms get that support because somebody needs to be at a job outside of the house full time, maybe multiple jobs, maybe commuting. And so to have your involvement is also a key part because when we started homeschooling when we first moved here, that took a gigantic toll on me and my mental health, I feel like. But I think it was also the transition of moving, not having a full support system, not being involved in the community yet. And there were other factors, but you were working more full time, going to working with the school systems. So that I think having that partner in it is really valuable. I do think now with the way we're set up and the way we're involved in different things, it would be okay if you had to be away. But I think there's so much value in having both parents, or at least having the other parent have some sprinkled involvement.
Contributions,
Yeah.
yeah, or support in helping that get through the scheduling or implementing some of the things that we want to work on.
Yeah. So what's changed for you as far as the resistance in the beginning? Right? Like, we are not, nope, they need to go to school. They need to be out of the house. We work a lot from home so that it's nice to have a quiet space to work and not be distracted. But so, yeah, what has changed for you? Because I feel like you get more and more involved as the weeks go on in your time
What has changed?
and what I guess the shift in experience and what is your perspective on it now?
So my initial thought was they're going to be home all day. They're going to be fighting a lot. How am I going to get any work done? And how are we going to be a teacher and a parent and separate those roles and get them motivated to complete things that they didn't want to do? And it was going to be a lot of whining and just if I had a meeting, then here's your iPad and not a lot of learning. And also, I think for me, getting up in the morning and catching a bus and waiting outside for the bus in the cold and doing things you don't want to do and going to a schedule and following a schedule, work builds resiliency and builds confidence, and not everything is going to be easy in life. And so I didn't want to lose that learning of overcoming obstacles. And well, they don't like school, so we'll just remove that obstacle, and they don't like this, so we'll make it easy for them. And I didn't want to, I guess I had a fear that, I didn't want them to be lazy or entitled or have
Mm.
this feeling of not having a good work ethic, because that's really important to me as one of my values. And so what's changed is I see there's so much opportunity that we've explored and gotten into, and there's a lot of different resources and things that come up that I think are great learning opportunities, and there's so much more joy in learning with them that we see. They're really excited to learn and explore and go places. There's a lot more flexibility with what we can do, when we can do it. You're not almost stuck on the school schedule and when they're in school and when they're not, and we can also follow their interest and what are they passionate about and excited about, and how can we use that to continue to help them grow and learn.
Yeah, and I think that that's a huge component is you can take a deep dive into something versus like, okay, we've done our 20-minute lesson, 15-minute lesson on this. Okay, now we got to move on to the next thing. But if they're interested in exploring something, you can take a deeper dive into it and let them have that time and go visit the place, like you're saying. Yes.
And the second question that people want to know, what is the biggest challenges with homeschool and how do you overcome that? So I think it's time, managing our time,
Yeah.
right? What does that look like? How do we get work and enough learning uh, that you can get it all done? How do you keep up with everything and where they're supposed to be at and falling behind and keeping up with work so you can pay your bills and have enough resources to
Yeah, to pay for
Uh,
all the things that
yeah.
you wanna do.
So for
That
me, that's the biggest time is just managing time.
mm.
What would you say the biggest challenge?
Yeah, I agree with time, definitely time, and balancing getting the things done, the subjects, getting the math, getting the science, getting the core concepts inputted into our day, but also allowing that flexibility for why we're doing this. So it doesn't end up being just of just trying to follow the public school model, and I think that's what a lot of people get into that rut of, okay, we got to spend like an 8-hour day doing all of these subjects where really they can get subjects done together with me and do their online subjects in a matter of 2 hours or less, even depending on the day.
You think they're in school 6, 7 hours a day, so they need to be learning 6, 7 hours a day at home, and really at school there's so much downtime and
Lining up, telling other people to sit down. Sorry.
yeah, no, that really how much time is actually them learning, and in school it's often doing a worksheet or that kind of
Hmm.
desk table work, and learning, as we know, can be so much more learning opportunities outside of the table and desk, and experiences is learning, and practicing and doing things and going places, and having that is, or I think, more valuable and memorable going to George Washington's house.
Mount Vernon.
So memorable. I
Learned
forgot.
so much.
So going to George Washington's house, Mount Vernon, and just experiencing that and learning rather than teacher reading a book, they're
Right.
going to remember so much more about it and what it felt like, and just hearing how they cooked and
Yeah.
their experience of
Seeing it.
eating
Yeah.
for 3 hours every day and what that looked like.
George Washington would eat from
Every
three
night.
to eight or
Yeah,
something.
something crazy. It was a
Some
huge
long, long
experience. Sounds like a nightmare for
five
me.
course meal every night. Sounds amazing. And the kids loved that idea too. Yeah. And I think that's a challenge in itself of there's so much once you open up the doorway and open up to all the experiences, there's so much out there to do. And one, the money part, yeah, we got about that goes back to time.
Some places they do supplement or give you grants or money to use.
Yes.
It's
So
not
Florida is a
not
big
in our
one.
state, but so that was the thing. How are we going to pay for this? So we're not only are they home all day, we can't work as much, but and we're added expenses for everything. Our electric bill is higher because they're home all day and they're eating more, and we're taking them to these places that cost more that maybe we wouldn't. So it is an added burden.
Yeah, definitely. There are homeschool days, and I know you said resources. So when we went to Mount Vernon, it was a homeschool day, and you got the tickets for half price. So that's a good deal if you can make that happen. But yes, I agree that part is so exciting of going out, experiencing it, and then we do bring a book along with it. So we bought a George Washington book. Who is George Washington? We're reading a chapter in it each day or every other day when we're doing our morning meeting. So to be able to make it all inclusive and have that full experience, but we were talking about the challenges. We keep coming to the positives, so that's that's a
I
positive right
brought up
there.
the challenges of the financial.
Yeah, so
But
there's so much. That's a challenge. Is
Mhm.
there's so much to do once you start getting into it that everything does cost money. There are states, so we know Florida gives a credit to students, homeschool students, and to private schools. So that's nice. California also has a charter school system that allows credit or financial support for the activities you want to do. But again, finding those resources out there that provide the free homeschool day or the 50% off or whatever it might be.
This reminded me another benefit is while everybody's at school and work all day, things open up and there's a lot of deals, and you're super
Mhm.
good at finding and exploring these deals. Like our local library has these STEM
Yeah.
classes that they do for free,
Yes.
and they're so excited to go to the library, which is so funny.
They would go every day of the week. It's so funny.
We go, so I took them ice skating. That was important to me to help them learn to ice skate. And there's nobody there. We're the only ones, and it's like half off. So we went to an arcade, and there was
Mhm.
unlimited arcade games for an hour, and it was like the greatest thing ever. So there's so much resources and things out there, and there's a lot of opportunity, and you've done really well. It's hard to uncover, but once you start looking and finding, and then you're talking to other parents and making connections and resources they use, there's a lot available to fill up that schedule.
Yeah, so that's one thing I started while they were in school because they kept talking about going back to homeschooling. And I had joined a lot of the Facebook groups and moms groups and whatever the different things were. But Facebook has a lot of opportunities where you join the groups and then they post about the activities and the things, the events that are going on. So it does help to see, oh, all this stuff is going on and there's going to be things to do. I think that was my fear of like not getting around other people. And so so you mentioned going ice skating, nobody's there, and going here, nobody's there. And that's great to us because we're like, oh, that's great. We get to spend time together and enjoy that time. But someone that's listening might be saying, well, you're never around people. How are they
And
going to socialize?
that's the third question that people are concerned with. How do homeschool kids socialize and build friendships?
Yeah, how do they? How do they?
We have cultivated more friendships in
It's
homeschool
crazy.
than going to public school.
I feel like we're socializing as a whole more than we would with them at public
Yeah.
school.
And so number one, I think, is you fostered an environment where kids are welcome at our house all the time. And our kids are asking us every day, text this person, can they come over? Text this person, can I go over there? Can we do this? And there's probably 2 to 5 people at my house every time I come
The
home.
Pryans.
The house is a disaster, and I can remind myself this is only temporary.
They're having fun.
So we've connected with the other homeschool kids in the neighborhood. We've gotten parents' numbers, and we're constantly, can they come over? Can they come over? Can we? I've taken other kids with us to places. Hey, we're going to this place. Could this person come along? So constantly being involved and connecting and reaching out because other parents are like, sweet, I get
Yeah.
a break for my kid and they can go play. And so I think it's worked out for all of us.
Yeah, it helps us to have them playing here, even if I have to keep an eye on them and I can still get something done while they're all playing and engaging. And then I know they're getting that social time.
We've also incorporated the physical activities, so coaching soccer and being involved with that and having them do a sport, horseback riding, being on some kind of team. And even our community center has activities that are really inexpensive, just exploring those, even going and building a Christmas ornament with other kids and holidays, or there's always having some kind of function involving. So
Yeah,
incorporating
joining us.
sports or martial arts. They had a homeschool martial arts day when other homeschoolers go and they meet them and they love that. They were like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Let's try it out. They gave us a free 2 week trial or 1 week trial and they ended up loving that. What else? What else are they doing that's keeping them socialized?
Different co-ops. There's lots of different co-ops out there where you can either pay for them to be dropped off. So we needed that with our work schedules. We needed some dedicated time. So we dedicated 2 days a week to drop them at a co-op that's on a farm. So they get that experience of a lot more time outdoors. They do also cover different subject areas like history and math and science. And so they have the learning aspect and they're also getting that social aspect that's every week, just like going to school, right? So we've made, like Brian said, a lot of friends through that. But there's other co-ops that are free that you can involve yourself in where parents actually take a role in teaching. They might have to be there every week. There's also ones that parents switch off teaching. So then you only have to teach every 6 weeks or have the kids every 6 weeks. And then there's also play groups, that you can join, different, like I said, the Facebook groups online that have field trips, like field trip groups. So you can join those. But the co-op every week has been quite a helpful tool for us, for them and for us, I think, to manage.
Because they have other kids there that they see regularly, and then we get to know the parents, and those parents' kids are home by themselves during the week, and we're home, and so we have the flexibility to meet up or create opportunities to get together or do things together. That has been really helpful. So it's given us an opportunity to meet other people that are in the same situation and connect with them. And really, that's not easy, but I think Kathryn's really good at getting the numbers and talking to people and reaching out, and they're usually really happy that we did and thankful and excited that we could do things together. And now we're picking them up and picking up other kids, and they're just bringing them straight to our house and just exploring each other's.
Yeah, and that can be hard. And so for a parent who might be more introverted or have more social anxiety, which I can experience that. And I used to have social anxiety pretty intensely in the past. So, and I can have moments of that. Yeah, it's hard to reach out to someone and say, hi, you don't know me, but my kid wants to play with your kid. But you see, once you step out there, just like with anything that you one step at a time, you're going to build your own feelings of competence around it and your own resiliency with it and see that, oh, it's not a big deal. I can reach out. When we compare, and again, we don't want to like hate on school. But when you compare socialization in a public school setting versus socialization in what we're talking about in the day to day, you're having all these different experiences. Even just going to the grocery store the other day, the kids were able to do the conveyor belt and check out, do the self checkout. And then when something went wrong, they were able to talk to the person that came to help us. And they're doing their own businesses where they're continuously interacting with different people of all different ages, adults, kids. So when you think about that in connection to or comparison to the public school system where you're in a room with the same kids of the same age every single day, and you only get set times to actually socialize. They get in trouble for talking too much, right? You get in trouble for socializing in
Yeah.
public school, right? I remember getting reprimanded for talking too much, right? Talking to my friends because you're not supposed to be socializing.
It used to be the homeschool kids were rare and they were weird or awkward and it was comfortable. But I think that kind of stereotype is changing and it's much more uh, evolved where and accepted. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot more kind of like gluten free. There never used to be gluten free. Now everything's gluten free, right?
Right.
There's options out there that if you look, you can find.
I wish we had the stats. Maybe we can include that on how much I've seen it, the stats of what it was like 10 years ago, how many homeschoolers there were, and how many there are today. And the numbers just continue to increase. I think COVID did help people to see a different way that they could approach life and that they could approach schooling.
Even work
Mm-hmm.
changed the work. I could work from home, or I don't have
Mm-hmm.
to go to the office, or there's a lot of career changes and a shift in that mindset of what life is supposed to look like and not just commuting and going to work from 9 to 5.
And I think that that's one of our values that really drives this moving forward, really, is making your life the way you want it and doing the hard work and doing the things, but also making it enjoyable and meaningful. And it doesn't have to be, the system's way of.
I want to highlight something you said about cultivating our children's interests. So, just the entrepreneurial spirit. I was talking about this with somebody the other day, and man, just to have these opportunities. So, daughter likes pets and really is interested in animals, and so she was interested in making money, and she just one day created a rover account. So next thing you know, we have people coming over and dropping off their pets, and she gets to see other pets. And she created a business around pet sitting and made flyers and put coupons in the neighbors, obviously with our guidance. But she's very strong and determined to do this. And just having that, what does that look like? What do you have to do? Marketing and pricing and comparing and supply and demand and creating a business, and what does that all entail, and getting a credit card and saving and looking at fences. All that was I didn't have and not really ever covered in school. And just the other day our son got a friend over and he had a broom and he's like, I'm gonna go ask the neighbor if I could sweep their porch for $10. And I was like, go ahead, bud, that sounds great, we'll see what he says. And they went to five different neighbors and knocked on the door and talked to them and asked them, like something I would be scared to death to do even right now. I
Right.
probably wouldn't do that, and just asking them and overcoming that fear and the rejection and looking at what's available, what's a need people need, and how can I supply that? And just that having that mindset alone, I think, is not covered
Right.
in school, and the growth mindset and what do you want to do and how do we explore that and what does that look like? It's too many kids to do that with. We're fitting them into a box, and this is what the state tells us we have to learn versus how do you create an LLC? Well, let's look it up. Let's go on the
Mm-hmm.
website. How do you create? Now we ask my daughter, how do we do stuff online? And she's editing videos and making posts and
Yeah, both of them. Yeah. I think, yes, the growth mindset and social emotional learning is starting to take hold. I think in the public school systems, they're trying to incorporate it, but like you're saying, it can't really be individualized to what does that mean and how do you actually apply it? Like, I think they're covering it in a broad sense, but not like really giving them the opportunity to work on something that gives them a growth mindset, right? So working through that process of building a business, and we keep it fun too. It's not like we're driving our children to be like
yeah, and it's not
intensely
all about
working,
money motivated, but
but it's more fun. What are you interested in, and what are they intrinsically motivated to do? And
we can't even go to Costco and get like soda
um,
before they grab it and take it to the end of the driveway and start selling it to our neighbors. So excited. She's
yeah,
out
it's
of
fun.
it. That's impressive.
Yeah.
And they're just so excited to keep learning and doing that.
So I think that the time that homeschooling affords you to have those opportunities is what's so great, right? We have the time to talk about those things. We have the time where I think if they were at school all day, they would then come home and maybe want to play with their friends still or need to completely veg out
Or they
on,
do homework.
yes, or do homework, but we wouldn't have that individualized time to really work on taking them to the next level, challenging them.
Was just thinking they were driving the other day and they saw a chair that was free and had a big hole in it. And they're like, pick it up. And so they picked it up, and now we're doing woodshop class Friday mornings and learning about tools and building stuff and creating stuff. We made like a chicken perch. Yeah,
Yeah,
perch.
I could
Yeah,
think it.
chicken perch. But so those are just things where if they were in school, just wouldn't happen. You wouldn't have that experience. And hey, let's figure this out. We found a broken chair. How do we fix it? What does that look like? And then we're going to paint it and then sell it at a market. And so just having that experience
Mhm.
is the learning experiences that we highly value. That it's really going to cultivate that.
So that outweighs other challenges such as like the frustration with maybe all the things we bring home or
I swear they would never
yes.
they would never throw out an Amazon box if I didn't, when they were sleeping, put them in the recycling.
So
They
there's
we
always something you could do with it.
always
It's always
something to
something
do with
fun.
that.
But there, I mean, so I'm trying to think like it's not all butterflies and rainbows, right? We're very enthusiastic about it right now. But there is sometimes that we are challenged with maybe too much togetherness, if or dysregulation among one of us, any of us, right? Me or Brian, the kids, can then affect the whole household, which everybody I'm sure experiences. We're working on.
The winter was hard because we couldn't be
Mhm.
as outside as much. So being inside,
Yeah,
outside is important and really
movement
helpful.
is important. Yeah.
Cold in the darkness early. So,
It's hard
yep,
for all of us
yep,
living in other places
yeah.
that had
You
more
looked right at me.
I mean, it is. It's hard. I love to be outside, and when it's cold, I'm not as motivated to be out there, and I know it's better for us all.
So what does our typical home schedule day or week look like? So we've really tried to structure it so there's some movement, some online learning, some social, some exploring, getting out of the house. So maybe take us through a typical day or what that looks like and what we have in their schedule.
Yeah, so that's something that I looked at the beginning of like and talked to you about too. Of what's important to us? What are our values? What do we want to include? And how can we, get the most included in this? And I know you said like I want them to be learning a language or an instrument, and that's important to me too. And the basic subjects. So I put together with the schedule that we were going over and figuring out, I put together a chart for myself because I know I need a checklist. I need to know what I'm covering. I need to see that I'm covering it and hold myself accountable to that. So I put
And you
together.
got a whiteboard, and
Mhm.
every morning it's the schedule for a day and what that looks like, and so they can help create that structure and have a plan. Because I
Yeah.
think without that, it can be very easily get away where maybe they're taking extra time getting ready in the morning or watching shows, or and then things come up with the work, and it can get sidetracked quickly, and which is okay. But
Well, we have a flexible when we put this.
yeah,
So
it's a framework.
we have the schedule for the week, which I have a chart that has everything I would love to include, and I put like daily, and then I have weekly. So like the instrument and art and that kind of thing is weekly, although we do it more than weekly, but it's on there. But then every day I try to include a morning meeting where we do cover some worksheets with math, a chapter in the book. We cover kind of a themed. I try to, if we're going to Mount Vernon, I try to create a theme around that either before or after, continuing to learn about it. We include geography, history, math, science, all in that morning meeting of how can I incorporate this and how can I make it meaningful. And instead of just checking it off, right? Sometimes we are just checking off the workbook, but we are continuing to move through that so we know they're making progress in those areas. So that helps. But then we, like Brian said, we put up the whiteboard with the days, schedule, and events and things we're going. I also put the social part on that weekly checklist too. So I write in every day what they're doing socially so that I can see that I'm making sure to incorporate that. So yeah, looking at our values, putting it down on paper, writing it out. So I have a binder that keeps those weekly events and things that are happening. And then
Some of the resources we use that I think would be good to share. So
Mhm.
they do some online academic work through Me Academy,
Mhm.
which I think is really great. It's a lot of videos and sharing and exploring different parts of the world and reading comprehension and math and other areas. And that generally can take 20, 30 minutes. And we're there for support with them and building independence through that.
It could take up to an hour, depending on the day, and you can adjust the curriculum, you can add in classes, take things out, but depending on how much they have that day and how challenging it is.
You mentioned art. So we're lucky enough to have their grandmother local who does really is very creative and does a lot of art, and so they get to spend that time with her, and she leads an art class, and so it's not going over and hanging out with grandma, but we're going over and we're doing art, and it's generally 30 to 60 minutes, and they're coming home with paintings or different structure, not structures, but
Creations.
creations and
Mhm.
crafts. So that is really cool to see them do that and have that time with their grandmother, which I think is really special. They
Mhm.
do guitars and have that lesson. There's also, which I really think is really cool, is Out School, which is also online that Kathryn found, where you can have a class on anything you want. So if your interest is horses, there's classes on learning about horses and taking care of horses and training horses, or there's a class on Japanese, and it's live, so it's synchronous,
They're both, yes.
asynchronous, and synchronous classes online. And there's other students in there, and you can ask questions, and the teacher's there. And if there was a class on learning how to code for Roblox or just anything you want, it's really really cool. And that can meet once a week and just add that to the interactive with other kids from all over the world. There was kids from different
Yeah.
countries in there too. It's really cool.
Yeah, and the teachers are also from different all over. I know one of the teachers our daughter had was in Alaska, so she would share about her life in Alaska and things that were, how it was different there because it was dark all the time in the winter. And so, yeah, talk about socialization. You're getting to socialize with, yeah, people across the United States and across the world, which is so awesome, right?
I think
So
in
awesome.
school maybe you had a pen pal and the next one
Yes.
over and you wrote, but this is like meeting and interacting and talking with people of the world and learning cultures and different.
And there are free options. So there are free options on there. And a lot of the courses do cost money, but it's a weekly thing that you can pause when you need to and restart. There are other options like that, like varsity tutors and other online courses. I think,
A lot of free stuff on YouTube too. You
mhm.
can watch Khan Academy or other things like that.
Yes.
But we try not to keep them too much on the computer. I would say they're probably on it less than an hour a
Hmm.
day, ideally. Preferably, an ideal would be kind of getting some breakfast and getting ready in the routines. And it's important that they make their bed for me, and getting some movement in definitely helps a lot before we try to get into any academics or online learning. So they're doing their Me Academy, getting that done with. And then from there, any specials they call them in school, but
Hmm.
getting through any crafts, or we cultivate cooking or baking is something they enjoy. We do a lot of science experiments. We
Hmm.
went and saw the caves and the stalagmites and stalactites, and then we made them at home and kind of built that. So after the online part, practice the piano. There's apps that you can do that, or guitar or art. And then what else is there's trying to fit in other activities. So the library is often something they go to look at books, or there's things there, or they have a lot of classes that you do there.
Yeah, so if you wanted like a quick rundown of our current week, it's always changing too. I think that's important to be flexible with and not rigid in the like this is how we thought it was going to be and then it doesn't turn out to be or you find extra classes or you find something else you want to do and then you kind of have to and I think it from what I'm hearing, it's going to always be like that as they grow and change, especially as they go into middle school and high school, and things are maybe more intense, or you need more. So just being flexible seems to be a big thing. But like Monday is our big day to like get a lot of our stuff done here. So we have our morning meeting, we have our online time. But the other day we got up on a Tuesday and went mountain biking at the park and I got to walk and enjoy the fresh air. They got to play in nature and mountain bike, and we stopped in the creeks and made a bridge and did all this stuff, and then came home and did the school stuff. So we've learned that that movement, like Brian was saying, is really important before. But so the day would start with that the meeting where we're incorporating stuff, the online, and then we're free to kind of incorporate whatever we want. So if it's the things at home, but it's mostly running out to different classes, like at the library, running out to the art class with their grandparents and the guitar. And then Wednesday, Thursday, they're at the farm school. And then Friday, they get the wood shop with
What's up,
with
workshop?
Brian, and then other fun activities. But we might take a whole day, like Brian's saying, and go, it's Monday. Oh, let's go to that homeschool Mount Vernon opportunity and spend the whole day doing that. And maybe, hey, let's do your online learning in the car on the way there. And then we'll get that in. Or, hey, let's not do it today. Let's do it. So, yeah, that's kind of a super fast rundown. I'm trying to give like a quick snapshot. I don't know if
Mhm.
that helps, but yeah. So it's what you want to make it, right?
Yep.
And
Thinking about any other things we add in there.
trips.
Trips.
So going away for a week with friends to the beach, where the friends also had to complete some schoolwork. So the kids got lots of free time to explore, and we went different places, but they also had that time they did their online work while the other friends were doing their paperwork from their school. So being flexible with that. And we were still able to get a little work done. We were able to do some projects we needed to do, but then building in the experiences there of going to a lighthouse and getting their ranger badge. They did a whole project around that, going to the Native American Museum there. So building in those experiences, even on a vacation or a trip, going to England and building the history of all of that and American history, England history. So it's exciting for me
Mhm.
and I think it's reintroduced and solidified my love of learning and curiosity and growth. And it's made it fun to re-explore these things and things that I didn't really learn as a kid because it wasn't meaningful to me and it didn't make sense, or I just didn't have the same experience. So I get to relearn all of those things.
I think in the afternoon we also cultivate their passion. What are they excited about? What do they want to learn more about or do? So our one of our kids is, like I said, really interested in horses, and so they want to train. Or we found a farm, and they want to train. They have many horses there, and she wants to train them to be therapy animals, where she could then take them to birthday parties and other events. And so she goes there every day and gets to hang out with the horses and work with them and train them. And she has a class that she takes to how to train them. And so there's lots of certifications and things out there. But she's working with the horses to something she loves to train them to be able to work with them, which is such a amazing, I think, experience for her. And just be able to do that and see where it goes, and supporting her obviously by taking her there and researching and doing that. Also, there's a town has an art festival, and so we signed up for a table. And so our long-term project is creating things from now until that happens where we can sell them at the art fest, and exploring what do we want to make and what does that look like, and
Mm-hmm.
really excited about doing art, and it's a passion of his. And so what can we do with that? And so whether it's cooking and making cookies and, I don't know, dropping them off at the local fire station, or whatever it is, using that experience I think is important too, because learning that you can learn math, by doing worksheet, or you can learn it by cooking or measuring things in a word shop, or doing all of that and
Mm-hmm.
conversions and things like that. So whatever, yeah, just encourage whatever your child is interested in, use that to continue to grow their interest and learn and explore all the different things available with it in that domain.
Yeah, and I think we have a background in a guiding approach, right? I think that we add that to as much as we can. Sometimes it's, you got to get it done.
That goes
Sometimes
all
our
out the window.
patience is very short and we understand what it's like, yeah, parenting day to day and all of that. But using that guiding approach, like you're speaking of, in everything you do really helps to make it a full, expansive learning experience for everybody. Like the art projects and things like that, or the horse project is something I'm involved in, and you're involved in as well. But I'm learning so much, but I can guide her or them to take on more of a role, to become more competent. I don't know.
But even the initiating, asking the owner of the farm, hey, this is something we're interested in. How can we help? We want to work together. Is this available? Right. So taking risks and
Mm-hmm.
supporting that and being involved in your community and initiating. And there's so much out there, and so many people that are willing to work with you. I think you have to. We just stayed home all day and just kept to ourselves and did our own thing. That would be a lot harder. So having other people, and
Yeah.
say even in the afternoons, there's people here probably every day. It just afternoons are hanging out with people when they come home from school, or creating those play dates and having that free time to just go and be a kid and run around outside and dig holes in our backyard
Yeah,
or whatever they're
climb up
doing.
trees. Really, I really want them to have, I think about our childhoods and, generations past childhoods of really being outside in nature, climbing trees, building forts, riding bikes, falling off the bikes, getting hurt, all of that where I think our generations now are moving toward being more on the screen time, being more inside, being so that's definitely a value of mine to like for them to cultivate that experience for them. I think as parents that another challenge is really forcing ourselves out of our comfort zones to then socialize more, to then reach out, to challenge ourselves, to take the risks with and for our children and for ourselves, like supporting our child to put together a PowerPoint to make that request of the mini horses, and feeling uncomfortable in it myself to make this request proposal to someone, but knowing that whether they say no or yes, like this is a growing opportunity for all of us to work through this, to have something that we're motivated to do, to put ourselves out there, to take on that risk and risk being rejected, right? It's just such beautiful learning opportunities for all of us involved, and it's helping me to grow, and it's encouraging me every day to keep taking those risks for myself too in our business and in the things that I'm taking on, and really to take those little steps to make dreams happen, make things happen, manifest things, all that, but taking those action steps every day. So I'm motivated and encouraged and challenged every
And I
day.
think they see that in us, and they're more willing to do that with
Mhm.
taking chances, trying new things, creating, Kathryn does, creating retreats. And what does that look like? And marketing for that and planning for that. And I think our kids see that and they want to plan for stuff and market stuff and sell stuff and do that for themselves. So I think that's important. Or even like for me, the dryer breaks and my kids are up there, "Hey, let's figure out how to fix this," and we pull up to YouTube and we take it apart, and right, that's a great learning experience. A lot of us would just skip that and be like, I'm fixing the dryer, I got to get this done, it's not working. But it can be an opportunity to figure it out with your kids and learn together. What do we need, what does this look like? And that's just going to build their resilience and the opportunity to overcome obstacles and challenges, because they're always going to be faced with those in life. And I think that's the kind of goes with the last question. Can homeschooling really prepare kids for college and the real world? I think it's, you have something to say, but it's really helping them prepare even more for the real world, because they're doing things, practicing them, real life examples of budgeting and finances and all the things that come along with taking care of a house and schedules and all that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I wanted to say that you are really great at modeling and exemplifying that the taking on those challenges like the dryer breaking or the pipes being clogged or the whatever it is that needs to be fixed and changing the lights in our house, you whatever needs to be fixed, whatever goes wrong, you find a way to figure it out through YouTube, through researching, through whatever, and trying it. And I want to commend you because I appreciate that so much about you because I don't do that. I would be like, let's call somebody, where
Even changing the oil or washing the car. Our kids are out there. I can't wash the car without them being out there and being like, "Let me help." There's no bribing them. Actually, sometimes I just want to do it myself and
yeah,
get it done. There, and I think I was sharing this with somebody, like the intrinsic nature of all of us to want to learn and grow. They're out there. They want to learn and
mhm,
help, and I'm not giving them allowance or making them out there. Like I
yeah,
said, sometimes I'd rather just do it myself, but
because
they're out there. Give me the sponge. How can we? Let me do this. Let me spray. And it's such a cool thing to see.
yeah, there's something that I was teaching about in my psychology class the other day. It's called self-determination theory, and
Hmm.
it's that we all have this intrinsic motivation and we all have this internal drive to seek autonomy, to be effective in our lives and to learn and to grow. And sometimes that extrinsic rewards or extrinsic motivation can diminish that a bit in us and take that away a bit. If we have too many rewards, if we have too many like external reinforcement, then we tend to say, well, what am I going to get out of this, or what do I get for doing this? Where if we try to enhance that self-determination theory or that individual drive, and that's what letting them be involved helps with, right? It's hard sometimes, but it's important. But
And that reminds me that something else we do is look for volunteer opportunities is a nice thing. Going to the pet shelter tomorrow to read to the animals, right? So there's lots of opportunities to volunteer or help somebody out. We found some eggs and we packaged them up and wrote notes and went and delivered them to our neighbors. So there's That's always a fun and important thing for me is helping others and looking for places where you can volunteer or provide assistance
Like
that way.
fostering animals.
Fostering, don't do it. It'll quickly turn into a foster fail. No, you should foster animals.
Yes.
Try not
She's
to.
meant to be with us. But that was one of our projects for the start of the school year
Yeah,
to foster. Another thing we got signed up for.
I thought you were gonna say sucked into.
Signed up for. And yes, she was meant to be with us, the cat that we have. That also speaks to getting, this might not be in everybody's wheelhouse, but baby chicks to learn about and experience. There are classes that you can take that you can rent the chicks or you can watch them hatch. We've done that. But butterfly kits and tadpoles, we've done a lot of things.
Animals is big in our house.
Yes, so that might not be your cup of tea, but there are little ways like the hatching the butterfly. Yes, letting them go through that process is something that I think is easier for a lot of people to do. But real life, going back to that, right?
Yeah.
How does it?
I was gonna say preparing for college. That's gonna be tricky because I think college is changing now, and we have before it was like you had to go to college, and now it's kind of a conversation in our household of people wanting to go to college and thinking you need to go to college, and with this entrepreneurial spirit, I see there's a lot of value in creating your own business and working for yourself and building something that you're passionate about. So that's something that we're gonna have to consider.
Yeah, so this is a conversation definitely that we have. Uh, conversation that might turn into a bit of an argument. I don't know. But I think that we were able to create our business and to do what we do because we sought higher education. And now we have that to enable us. But yes, I do think you can do things and create businesses without it. I do think it's kind of like a standard thing I would like them to do. And I think, one opportunity is online college, right? If you don't want to, you could take some classes on the side, right? And
I mean, that is an option. You're right. But the value in college is out of the classroom for me.
See,
that experience of being on your own with other people your age and figuring things out and managing your schedule and work and money. And that's the first step towards launch.
But I don't think everybody, yes. I think the focus might be elsewhere sometimes when you go to college.
Partying?
Yeah.
You want to say it? Yes, that was a big focus for me.
But you're able to balance it. Not everybody can.
Yeah, go too hard one way or the other. I think it's not good. Fully academics. There were those people in the library every day, all day, or those people partying every day, all day, and just kind of figure it out. You balance it.
Yeah, but I think college can be what you make
digress.
it. Just like homeschool, just like school, it can be a combination of things, right? It could be like when I went to college, I was on campus and I did take online classes while being on campus. It was like the beginning of online classes, I think. But yeah, I think it's what you make it. And it doesn't have to be you go freshman year and live in a dorm and do the traditional college thing because that's not always the best fit for everyone. But anyway, that's side note. But it's something to think about because it gets harder, I think, to do homeschooling as you go through middle school and high school because you get more in more intensive subjects and more difficult things like algebra. Algebra is my nemesis. Trigonometry, chemistry. What did you think I was going to say?
Calculus or things that are much more challenging. What's calculus? She's like pre-algebra, basic arithmetic, things that are really hard, like basic arithmetic.
Algebra was my my nemesis. Anyway, so yes. Did we answer all the common questions?
We got all the common questions. I think we shared about our experience and tools that we use. We can probably post those too in the notes section of things we use that we like. And
I think it really just comes back to values, right? What's important to us.
Jinx.
Really?
Yeah.
That has been a guiding focus over the past few years. And I think when we really stop and think about that, we're putting the who or what's important to us in the main spotlight, right? And finding ways that we can show up that's in line with our values, that's in line with what's important, and just each day chipping away, finding a way to take another step toward that.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Let us know any concerns, or I'll post the resources we talked about today in the notes section. Feel free to email us. Check us out on our website, Thrive Consultation and Therapy unfiltered.com.
Yeah, and if you're interested in any of the events that we're hosting, go to the events tab on our website. We have a retreat coming up in Hatteras, May 18th through the 22nd with Dome and Tasgum. It's going to be amazing, so check that out.
Yeah, you can be sure to learn more about Sheila from Tasgum or Jenny from Dome on previous podcasts we've done. And if you're considering it, make the leap. Try it out. See how it goes. You can always go back to school, but reach out to us, reach out to community people, even just meet up with somebody who's doing it now and ask them questions. See what it's like, how to get started. But really, that's, I think, been successful for us is getting curious, getting more information, learning more. There you go, my friends. Until next time.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.